I always knew Marcus was Dad's favorite. Growing up on the Riverside Ranch, it was impossible to miss the way Dad's eyes lit up whenever my older brother walked into a room. Marcus had that natural charm, that easy confidence that made everyone gravitate toward him. He was the star quarterback in high school, graduated summa cum laude from agricultural college, and returned home ready to modernize our family's cattle operation. Me? I was the dreamer. The one who spent more time reading books under the old oak tree than learning to brand cattle. Dad never said it outright, but I could feel his disappointment radiating from him whenever I chose the library over the barn, whenever I talked about maybe studying literature instead of ranch management. "Jake's got his head in the clouds," Dad would tell visitors, while Marcus demonstrated the new irrigation system he'd designed. "But Marcus here, he's got ranching in his blood." The comments stung, but I'd learned to live with them. I found my own path, eventually becoming a high school English teacher in the nearby town of Cedar Falls. It wasn't glamorous, but I loved watching kids discover the magic of storytelling. Still, every family gathering reminded me of my place in the hierarchy. When Dad started talking about his will during his final years, nobody was surprised by his intentions. The ranch would go to Marcus, who'd proven himself capable of running it. I'd get some small inheritance, maybe enough for a down payment on a house. It seemed fair, even if it hurt. Looking back now, I realize how wrong we all were about what Dad really wanted. Sometimes the people we think we know best are the ones hiding the biggest secrets. The law office smelled like old leather and disappointment. Marcus sat beside me in his best suit, looking every inch the successful rancher he'd become. I wore my only decent jacket, feeling underdressed and out of place. Dad had been gone for 3 weeks, and we were finally here to make his wishes official. Mr. Harrison, Dad's longtime attorney, cleared his throat and began reading. The will was exactly what we'd expected. Marcus inherited the ranch, all $8 million worth of prime cattle land, the house, the equipment, everything. He also got Dad's prized collection of antique farming tools and his grandfather's pocket watch. I received $5,000 and Dad's collection of old books. $5,000. After 35 years of being his son, that's what my life was worth to him. Marcus shifted uncomfortably beside me. "Jake, you know I'll make sure you're taken care of, right? The ranch is big enough for both of us." I nodded, not trusting my voice. It wasn't about the money, not really. It was about what it represented. Even in death, Dad had made it clear who mattered more. Mr. Harrison continued with the smaller bequests. Various cousins got modest amounts. The local church received a generous donation. Everything was neat, organized, final. "That concludes the reading," Mr. Harrison said, closing the folder. "Marcus, we'll need to begin the probate process next week." As we shook hands and prepared to leave, I felt hollow inside. This was it, the final confirmation that I'd never measured up to Dad's expectations. I was ready to walk away from the ranch forever, to start fresh somewhere else. If only I'd known what was waiting in that old barn. 3 days after the will reading, the worst thunderstorm in decades hit Cedar County. I was staying in my childhood bedroom at the ranch, helping Marcus sort through Dad's belongings before I moved out permanently. The wind howled like a living thing, rattling windows and sending tree branches scraping against the roof. Around midnight, a tremendous crack split the air. Lightning had struck the old barn where Dad stored his vintage equipment. Marcus and I rushed outside in our rain gear, fearing the worst. The barn wasn't on fire, thank God, but the lightning had torn a massive hole in the roof. "We need to move everything before the rain ruins it," Marcus shouted over the storm. We spent the next 2 hours hauling out antique plows, harnesses, and tools that had been in our family for generations. Dad had been meticulous about preserving these pieces of our heritage. Each item was carefully catalogued and stored in specific locations. As I lifted a heavy wooden crate from the far corner, something felt wrong. The crate was lighter than it should have been, and I could hear papers rustling inside. Dad had always told us this crate contained old harness parts, but the sound was all wrong. "Marcus, come look at this," I called. The crate's lid had warped over the years, creating a small gap. Through it, I could see the corner of what looked like legal documents. My heart started racing. Why would Dad hide papers in here? Marcus pried open the lid with a crowbar. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth, was a manila envelope marked "Last Will and Testament, Thomas Riverside Revised." We stared at each other in the flickering light of our flashlights. A second will. How was that possible? The storm raged on, but suddenly it felt like the least important thing happening that night. Back in the house, we sat at Dad's old kitchen table with the mysterious envelope between us. Our clothes were still damp from the storm, and the power had gone out, leaving us with only candles for light. The flickering flames cast dancing shadows on the walls, making everything feel surreal. Marcus's hands shook as he opened the envelope. Inside was a complete will, dated 6 months after the one Mr. Harrison had read to us. This one was in Dad's handwriting, witnessed and notarized properly. "This can't be real," Marcus whispered, but his voice lacked conviction. I read over his shoulder, my heart pounding. This will was completely different. In it, Dad left the ranch to both of us, split equally. But there was more, much more. The will included a letter addressed to me specifically. With trembling fingers, I unfolded the pages and began to read Dad's familiar handwriting. "Jake, if you're reading this, it means you found what I hid away. I'm sorry for the deception, but I had my reasons. The will Harrison has is real, but incomplete. I needed to know that you cared enough about this family to stick around even when you thought you got nothing." My throat tightened. Even from beyond the grave, Dad was testing me. "You always thought Marcus was my favorite, but you were wrong. You were different, son. Sensitive, creative. I worried the ranch would crush that spirit of yours. But I also worried you'd walk away from your heritage entirely." Marcus was reading along, his face pale in the candlelight. "I wanted to see if you'd stay and fight for your place in this family, or if you'd run away like I always feared you would." The letter continued, but I had to stop reading. My vision was blurring with tears I'd held back for decades. I wiped my eyes and continued reading Dad's letter. His words painted a picture of a man I'd never really known, someone who'd been watching me more carefully than I'd ever realized. "Jake, do you remember when you were 12 and found that injured hawk? You spent weeks nursing it back to health, reading everything you could about bird care. Marcus would have put it out of its misery, but you saw something worth saving. That's when I knew you had something special. I did remember that hawk. I'd named him Freedom and cried when he finally flew away. You think I was disappointed when you became a teacher, but you're wrong. I was proud. You found your own way to make a difference. But I also knew this ranch needed both of you. Marcus has the business sense, but you have the heart." The will went on to explain Dad's real plan. The ranch would be split equally between us, but only if we both agreed to work together. If either of us walked away, the other would inherit everything. If we both walked away, the entire property would go to the state as a wildlife preserve. He was forcing us to choose, Marcus said quietly. Stay and work together, or lose everything. But there was one more surprise. The will revealed that Dad had been secretly funding a scholarship program for rural students who wanted to pursue education beyond farming. He'd been doing it for 15 years, using money from the ranch's profits. "I want you to take over this program, Jake. Use your teaching background to help kids who feel caught between two worlds, just like you did." Marcus set down the papers and looked at me. I had no idea he felt this way about you, about any of this. "Neither did I admitted. "I thought he saw me as a failure." "We need to call Harrison first thing in the morning," Marcus said. "This changes everything." Outside, the storm was finally beginning to calm, but inside, everything I thought I knew about my father was being rebuilt from the ground up. Mr. Harrison's face went through several shades of pale when we showed him the second will the next morning. He examined every page with a magnifying glass, checking the signatures, the notarization, even the paper quality. "This is definitely your father's handwriting," he said finally, "and the notarization appears legitimate." "But Jake, I don't understand. Your father never mentioned a second will to me." We explained about the storm and the hidden crate. Harrison listened with growing amazement. "Your father was always a private man, but this level of secrecy is extraordinary. He must have had this notarized by someone else, probably in the county seat." Harrison made several phone calls, tracking down the notary whose seal appeared on the document. After 20 minutes of conversation, he hung up with a strange expression. "The notary remembers your father. She said he was very specific about the timing. He told her this will should only be discovered if his sons were worthy of the truth." She thought he was being dramatic. Marcus and I exchanged glances. Even his legal arrangements had been a test. "So what happens now?" I asked. "Well, this will is dated after the first one, which makes it the valid document. Assuming we can verify everything and there are no challenges, you two will inherit the ranch jointly." The relief I felt was overwhelming, but it was complicated by something else. Anger. Why had Dad put us through this elaborate charade? Why couldn't he have just been honest about his feelings? "There's something else," Harrison continued. "I've been your father's lawyer for 30 years, and I thought I knew him well. But this scholarship program he mentions, I had no idea it existed. He was funding it through a separate account I never knew about." Dad had been living a double life, hiding his true feelings behind a facade of favoritism and disappointment. The question was, why? That evening, Marcus and I sat on the front porch, where Dad used to drink his coffee every morning. We'd spent the day going through more of his papers, trying to piece together the man we thought we knew. "I keep thinking about all those times he criticized me," I said. "Was that part of the test too?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "You know, he criticized me too, just differently. He was always pushing me to be harder, more decisive. Don't let emotions cloud your judgment, Marcus. The ranch comes first, always. I thought he was proud of me, but maybe he was trying to toughen me up." We'd found more evidence of Dad's hidden activities, bank statements showing regular donations to literacy programs, letters from scholarship recipients thanking an anonymous donor, photos of Dad at school board meetings I'd never known he attended. He was at my graduation, I realized suddenly. From college, I saw him in the back of the auditorium, but when I looked again, he was gone. I thought I'd imagined it. "He went to all your school plays too," Marcus said. "I saw him once sitting in his truck in the parking lot during your performance of Romeo and Juliet. He never went in, but he was there." The picture that emerged was of a man who cared deeply but struggled to show it. Dad had grown up in a generation where emotions were weakness, where love was shown through actions rather than words. "Maybe he thought if he pushed us apart, we'd never learn to work together," Marcus suggested. "But if we could overcome that and still choose each other, we'd be stronger." It was a twisted kind of logic, but it made sense in a way. Dad had always believed that anything worth having was worth fighting for. "Do you think we can do it?" I asked. "Work together, I mean." Marcus smiled. I think that's what he was counting on. Over the next few weeks, Marcus and I began the delicate process of figuring out how to share something that had always belonged to just one person. The ranch had been in our family for 4 generations, and we were about to become the first brothers to run it together. Our first major decision was about the scholarship program. Dad had been funding it quietly for years, but now it needed official structure. I threw myself into the project, using my education background to create application processes and selection criteria. We should call it the Thomas Riverside Educational Foundation, Marcus suggested during one of our planning sessions. Dad would hate having his name on it, I replied. He always said the work should speak for itself. Then what about the Freedom Foundation? After that hawk you saved? The name felt right. Dad had remembered that hawk in his letter, had seen it as a defining moment in my character. It seemed fitting to honor that memory. Marcus proved to be an excellent business partner. He handled the financial side while I managed the educational components. We discovered we complemented each other perfectly. His practical skills balanced my idealistic tendencies. The ranch itself was thriving under our joint management. Marcus implemented new efficiency measures while I focused on sustainable practices and community outreach. We started offering educational tours for school groups, something Dad never would have considered. You know what's funny? Marcus said one evening as we watched the sunset from the barn. I think we're better at this together than either of us would have been alone. He was right. The ranch felt more alive somehow, more connected to the community it served. But the biggest surprise came when we received our first letter from a scholarship recipient. The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning, addressed to the Freedom Foundation. Inside was a handwritten note from Sarah Martinez, a high school senior from a neighboring county. Dear Foundation Directors, it began. I wanted to thank you for the scholarship that will allow me to attend college this fall. I'm the first person in my family to pursue higher education, and without your support, it wouldn't have been possible. Sarah went on to explain that she planned to study agricultural science and return to help modernize her family's small farm. She wanted to bridge the gap between traditional farming methods and new technology. She sounds like both of us, Marcus observed, honoring tradition while embracing change. We decided to visit Sarah's family farm to meet her in person. The Martinez farm was smaller than ours, struggling with outdated equipment and limited resources. But Sarah's passion for agriculture was evident in every word she spoke. My parents think I'm crazy for wanting to go to college, she told us. They say farming is something you learn by doing, not from books. I saw myself in her uncertainty, the feeling of being caught between two worlds. Sometimes the best way to honor tradition is to find new ways to preserve it, I told her. Marcus offered her a summer internship at our ranch, a chance to see how modern techniques could coexist with time-honored practices. Watching her excitement reminded me why Dad had started the scholarship program in the first place. That night, I found myself thinking about Dad's letter again. He'd written about seeing something worth saving in that injured hawk. Maybe that's what he'd seen in all of us. Potential that needed the right environment to flourish. The ranch was becoming something new under our joint stewardship, something Dad had envisioned but never lived to see. 6 months after finding the second will, we received an unexpected visitor. Mrs. Eleanor Patterson, Dad's elderly neighbor, knocked on our door with a covered dish and a story that would change everything we thought we understood. I've been meaning to come by, she said, settling into Dad's favorite chair. I have something to tell you boys about your father. Mrs. Patterson had known Dad for 40 years. She'd watched us grow up, had been there through Mom's death when I was 15, had seen the family dynamics play out from her kitchen window. Your father came to see me about a year before he died, she began. He was worried about you boys. Said he'd made mistakes in how he'd raised you, especially you, Jake. My heart clenched. Even in his final year, Dad had been thinking about his failures as a father. He told me about his plan with the wills. I thought he was being foolish, but he was determined. He said he'd spent too many years trying to make you boys into what he thought you should be, instead of appreciating who you were. Mrs. Patterson reached into her purse and pulled out a small notebook. He asked me to give this to you if his plan worked, if you boys found a way to work together. The notebook was filled with Dad's observations about us over the years. Page after page of moments I'd forgotten or never known he'd witnessed. My first day of teaching, when he'd driven by the school just to see me walking into the building. Marcus's late nights in the barn, working to improve the ranch's efficiency. "He was proud of both of you," Mrs. Patterson said. But he was afraid that pride had gotten lost somewhere along the way. He thought if you had to fight for your place in the family, you'd value it more. One entry, dated just a month before Dad's death, brought tears to my eyes. "Jake gave up his Saturday to help old Mr. Wilson fix his fence. Didn't ask for anything in return. That boy has his mother's heart." Dad had been watching all along, seeing the good in us even when we couldn't see it ourselves. As autumn painted the ranch in shades of gold and crimson, Marcus and I stood in the same spot where we'd found Dad's hidden will. The old barn had been repaired, its roof stronger than before. Sometimes things have to break before they can be rebuilt properly. The Freedom Foundation had awarded its first round of scholarships to 12 students from rural communities. Each recipient reminded us of ourselves in different ways. Kids caught between tradition and ambition, family loyalty and personal dreams. "I've been thinking about what Dad really wanted," I said, watching cattle graze in the distance. "It wasn't just about the ranch or the money." Marcus nodded. "He wanted us to choose each other, to choose family, even when it was hard." We'd learned so much about Dad in the months since his death. The scholarship program was just the beginning. We'd discovered that he'd quietly helped dozens of families over the years, never seeking recognition or thanks. He'd paid medical bills, provided emergency loans, and offered work to anyone who needed it. He was a better man than I gave him credit for, I admitted. "We all were," Marcus replied. That was his gift to us, forcing us to see the best in each other. The ranch was thriving under our partnership. We'd implemented new sustainable practices, expanded the scholarship program, and created a model for how family businesses could evolve while honoring their roots. But the most important change was in our relationship. We'd gone from distant brothers to true partners, united by a shared purpose that went beyond profit or tradition. As the sun set over the land that had shaped 4 generations of our family, I felt Dad's presence in the wind that rustled through the oak trees, in the lowing of cattle settling in for the night, in the solid ground beneath our feet. His plan had worked. We'd found our way back to each other, and in doing so, we'd found our way back to him. 1 year after the storm that changed everything, we held the first annual Thomas Riverside Memorial Scholarship Ceremony at the ranch. 24 students received awards, each one representing hope for the future of rural communities. Sarah Martinez was among them, now a college sophomore studying agricultural engineering. She'd spent the summer working with us, bringing fresh ideas and youthful energy to our operation. Watching her present her research on sustainable farming practices to the other scholarship recipients, I saw the continuation of Dad's vision. "Your father would be proud, Mrs. Patterson told me as we watched the ceremony from the porch. This is exactly what he hoped would happen. Marcus had invited several of Dad's old friends, men who'd known him for decades. Their stories painted a picture of a complex man who'd struggled with expressing emotion but had never stopped caring deeply about his family and community. "Tom always said his boys were his greatest achievement," one of them told us. "He just didn't know how to tell you that." And as the evening wound down and guests began to leave, Marcus and I found ourselves alone on the porch where we'd spent so many evenings talking through our new partnership. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we hadn't found that second will?" Marcus asked. "I'd thought about it often. I think I would have left, started over somewhere else, been angry for the rest of my life. And I would have run this place into the ground trying to prove I deserved it," Marcus admitted. "Dad knew us better than we knew ourselves. The ranch stretched out before us in the moonlight, $8 million worth of prime cattle land that had become something more valuable than money. It was home. It was family. It was the foundation for a legacy that would outlast all of us. Thank you for listening to my story. It's been a year since we discovered Dad's secret, and every day I'm grateful for the storm that brought us together. Family isn't just about blood or inheritance. It's about choosing to love each other, even when it's difficult. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Where are you listening from tonight? Do you have family stories of your own? Please subscribe to hear more tales of family, forgiveness, and the surprising ways love shows itself. Until next time, remember that sometimes the greatest gifts come wrapped in the most unexpected packages.